What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. We've got a really interesting group stage slate today, and this is the kind of card I like because it's got a mix of recognizable names, strong tactical matchups, and a few betting spots where the value is a little deeper than the surface level markets. We've got Belgium against Egypt, Saudi Arabia against Uruguay, and Iran against New Zealand. 3 games, 3 very different styles, and a few spots where the right angle might not be the most obvious one. So let's get right into it. First up, Belgium against Egypt. This is a fascinating matchup because it feels like one of those games where both teams are carrying a little extra meaning into it. Belgium are trying to make another run after disappointment in previous tournaments, while Egypt come in with a very organized structure and one of the biggest stars in the entire draw in Mohamed Salah. Belgium still have that group of experienced names that make them dangerous. Kevin De Bruyne, Romelu Lukaku, Jeremy Doku, Trossard, Courtois, there's still a ton of quality there. But what makes this game tricky is that Egypt are not the type of team that just opens up and gives you easy looks. They defend well, they stay compact, and they want to make the game uncomfortable. That said, I do think Belgium have enough attacking quality to eventually break them down. Egypt can frustrate you for a while, but if Belgium keep the pressure on and dominate possession the way they should, the chances are going to come. My favorite angle here is Jeremy Doku to have a shot on target. He looks like the most dangerous player in this matchup, and he's the kind of attacker who can create something even when the game gets tight. He's been in really strong form, and if Belgium are going to produce, he's likely going to be involved. I also like Belgium to score in the second half. Egypt may be able to slow things down early and keep this game competitive for a while, but over time I think Belgium's quality should tell. Second half goals fit that script really well. And then I don't mind Leandro Trossard to win a foul. Egypt are going to have to work hard defensively, and players like Trossard and Doku tend to pull defenders into awkward situations. That's exactly the type of spot where foul-drawn props can make sense. Next up is Saudi Arabia against Uruguay. This is one of those games where the managerial angle matters almost as much as the players on the pitch. Uruguay have the edge in experience, the edge in street smarts, and the edge in individual quality. Marcelo Bielsa brings a completely different kind of energy to this team, and even though there were some travel issues, I still think Uruguay are the better side here. Saudi Arabia are not a team you can just dismiss, though. They're organized, technically decent, and they can make life awkward if you don't take them seriously. But when I look at the two teams, I trust Uruguay's overall setup a lot more. The one thing I do expect here is a tighter first half. Saudi Arabia don't usually go out there and trade punches, and Uruguay also have enough discipline to control matches without needing to force the issue early. That makes me like a couple of angles here. First, Mohamed Keno to commit a foul. He's going to be in the middle of a tough tactical battle, and that's the kind of role where fouls pile up quickly. I like him as a player prop because he's going to be directly involved in trying to slow Uruguay down. Second, both teams to receive a card. That's the kind of game environment I expect. Saudi Arabia are going to have to work hard to stay in it, and Uruguay are not exactly the softest team in the world when things get physical. And finally, I like Saudi Arabia to score in the second half. Even if Uruguay control the game for long stretches, I can see Saudi Arabia finding a moment late, especially if they stay organized and wait for their chance. It's not the strongest pick on the board, but in a game that could be cagey early, I think it's a live angle. Now to Iran against New Zealand. This is a huge game for both teams because the group is still wide open, and every point matters when you're trying to separate yourself from the pack. Belgium and Egypt are the bigger names in the group, so this is exactly the kind of matchup where a win can completely change your path through the tournament and give you real momentum going forward. Iran, for me, look like the more complete side. They're disciplined, they're difficult to break down, and they usually have a very clear idea of how they want to play these kinds of matches. They don't get dragged into chaos very often, and that matters in a tournament setting where control can be more valuable than flair. New Zealand, meanwhile, can struggle when they come up against teams that are better organized defensively and better prepared tactically. That's why I like Iran in this spot. If I'm narrowing it down to one side, the strongest play is Iran to win. They have the edge in overall quality, they're the more reliable team defensively, and they have more experience in matches where margins are tight and pressure is high. I don't think New Zealand are a bad team at all, but this feels like a difficult setup for them if Iran come in focused and professional. I also like under 4 goals. This doesn't feel like the kind of game that turns into an end-to-end shootout. Both teams should understand how important the result is, and in a spot like that, the early priority is usually to stay compact, avoid mistakes, and make sure you don't give away anything cheap. That usually points to a more controlled game rather than a wide-open one. A player I'd keep an eye on here is Mehdi Taremi. He's still the main man when Iran needs something in the final third, and even if New Zealand sit deep and try to make things difficult, he's the kind of player who can still create a moment out of nothing. If Iran are going to break through, there's a good chance he's involved in some way. And if you want a more discipline-based angle, Marcos Dominguez is worth watching for a foul or card market. Midfield players in games like this can get dragged into a lot of traffic, especially when the match gets physical and the space starts to close down. That's exactly the type of spot where small prop angles can be more valuable than trying to force a bigger, less certain bet. So overall, this is a game where I'd lean Iran, I'd lean the under, and I'd look for Taremi to be the most likely attacking difference maker. So if I had to simplify the board, here's how I'd play it. For Belgium versus Egypt, I like Doka's shot on target, Belgium to score in the second half, and Trossard to win a foul. For Saudi Arabia versus Uruguay, I like Mohamed Kano to commit a foul, both teams to receive a card, and Saudi Arabia to score in the second half. For Iran versus New Zealand, I like Iran to win in under 4 goals. That's the kind of slate this is, not one where you just blindly back the biggest names and hope for the best, but one where the real value comes from understanding how each match is likely to unfold. You've got to think about the tempo, the tactical setup, the pressure points, and which team is more likely to control the flow of the game from start to finish. That's why I always say the edge is in reading the script before the market adjusts. If you can figure out the game state early, identify where the chances are going to come from, and spot the spots where the numbers don't quite line up with the actual matchup, that's where you find the best bets. So that's where I'm landing today. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with somebody who's betting these games tonight. It helps the channel a lot, and it lets me keep bringing you these daily picks and breakdowns. And I'll catch you in the next one.